Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tony. I'm a mobile software engineer at the Home Depot, and I've been developing apps for the past couple of years. I also enjoy hiking. Thank you so much for joining me in this teaching demo. Let's get started. So welcome to Spring Boot Basics. What I'm going to do today is just explain a high-level view, concept of what Spring Boot is, how to set up your build environment to work on your Spring Boot project, as well as build a small web application using Spring Boot. So Spring Boot in a nutshell, what it is, it's a small module that's built in with the Spring framework that when you combine it with embedded HTTP servers, just like Tomcat or Jetty, and then you actually subtract your XML configurations, and that gives you a Spring Boot application. In the more technical sense, it really provides rapid application development. And that's just a fancy word for developing and deploying things really quickly, which is a great advantage when you want to build something, from concept all the way to production in a quick amount of time. Some advantages of using Spring Boot is its auto configurations. At heart, that's really what it where it really shines. So you don't need any type of XML configurations that you have to kind of like manage. It also minimizes boilerplate code. You won't have to be, repeating things so much. So that allows you to get more done in less time. Developer, that's very, very useful. As well, there's multiple plugins that work with Spring Boot, Spring Data, Social, and many, many more. So let's talk about the environment that you're going to be setting up. Spring Boot doesn't generate files necessarily, so you do have to have an initialized project, a Spring project already in place to go ahead and run to install Spring Boot. A great way to get started if you don't have a project already cloned is to go to start.spring.io and just fill out your project if you want to use Gradle or Maven, what language you want to use. Since we're teaching Java right now, we're going to stick to that. But if you do fancy Kotlin, you can choose that as well. And you can choose the Spring Boot version. I would recommend using the latest one. So if you can see here as well, we added a dependency called Spring Web. You can actually just build web or RESTful applications with Spring MVC when you go ahead and initialize that project for the first time. Once you fill that out, you can just download the package and open it with your favorite IDE. I personally prefer IntelliJ, but you can also use Spring Tool Suite as well. All right, so let's build something. So right away, we're going to build a simple controller class called Hello Controller with annotated REST controller keyword just above it. And what this is going to do is just going to allow us to return data. Yeah, we're not going to be returning a view or whatnot. It's going to return the raw data when we make a web request. And then as well, we're going to use a simple get mapping annotated method to map that function index to return that string called greetings from Spring Boot. Again, we're just going to be returning that data and not a view in this case. All right, so now really the meat and potatoes of the application is annotated. And this is another class called application. We have a Spring Boot application. This is really telling your app that it is a Spring Boot app, and you want to make sure you're implementing all the auto configurations that get enabled. You have your app configuration as well as a component scan. So Spring Boot application, that annotation implements those three items. So it's a kind of like a convenience method. So the app configuration checks for any configs you already have. Enable auto configuration actually checks for any type of extra items you have on the class path, whether that's Spring MVC, and then it'll go through and kind of edit or install any type of like settings that you need in that case. And then as well, we did a command line runner bean. This is just to print out the names of the beans that are getting installed. All right, after that, we're going to build and run. So once you build and run this application, the Spring Boot application, and you check the command line, you're going to see a whole list of beans and their names. And right away, you can tell where it says boot.autoconfigure. It's actually auto-configuring some things for you already. We didn't have an embedded server implemented already, so it went ahead and installed Tomcat for us already. So a lot of things are already created for us and set that we didn't even need to to config, which is great. Lastly, we can go to a web browser and go to our local host. And if we hit that URL, it'll return the data, that string that we implemented, greetings from Spring Boot. So right away, just installing Spring Boot and setting up your project, you already got a basic web application that's you're able to make requests to it, as well as configure any type of beans that you need to continue building that project. So in summary, we talked about what Spring Boot is and some of the advantages of it, as well as we built our environment out to begin building the project. And then we created a small little project for Spring Boot as well. So if you're looking for more guides, go to spring.io/guides, and that'll definitely you'll be able to look at more guides and continue with your Spring Boot project. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Tony. Have a good night.